Looking to start your own website? The first thing you need is a domain name, and the best place to get one is at GoDaddy.com. With your domain registration, you'll get hosting, a free blog, complete email, and much more. Plus, as a MuggleCast listener, enter code RON, that's RON when you check out, and get your .com domain name for just $7.49 a year. Get your piece of the internet at GoDaddy.com.
This is Professor McGonagall welcoming you all to MuggleCast, hoping you enjoyed. Dobby, come here. Here, Dobby. Yes, well, I'd just like to say how very pleased I am to introduce MuggleCast to all of you. Thank you.
Because Micah is still having nightmares, this is MuggleCast episode 197 for April 28th, 2010. Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's a special episode today. We have an interview with Warwick Davis coming up later in the program, as we have teased on our Twitter and Facebook pages, and I believe our website as well. Micah and Eric are here, and Matt's here. He hasn't been on for a long time. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
And, oh my gosh, so much to talk about. But Eric, I just want to say, you just celebrated a birthday. Happy birthday, buddy.
Oh, thank you.
Did you have a good birthday?
It was. Actually, the day leading up to my birthday was actually far more adventurous. Like, it was a lot of stuff happened the day before, and then the day of was, like, relaxing and enjoyable, so it was really cool.
That's how my birthday was last year. I just sat there, recovering from the night before.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. But, good fun.
Well, like I said, we got a lot to talk about, a lot of Deathly Hallows news to get into. It's all in celebration of Eric's birthday. I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Eric Skull.
I'm Micah Tannenbaum.
And I'm Matt Britton.
Micah, what is in the news this week?
Many things related to Deathly Hallows, but first, this past week the American Library Association released their list of the entire decade's most banned or challenged books. And topping the list, can you guys guess?
Huckleberry Finn.
No.
Willy Wonka.
Try again. No.
James and the Giant Peach, that is a up book.
Oh my god.
You can't say
That is
but anyway.
Book.
Is Eric allowed to say that because it was his birthday?
I guess so. He's a big boy now.
So,
what was the banned top book?
Peter Pan.
Close.
What was it, Micah?
As close as you can be.
Matt has gotten the closest so far.
Yay!
Harry Potter.
Oh, of course. Why didn't I think of that? We're on a Harry Potter podcast, of course.
Now, would you say Harry Potter is the most challenged book or the most banned book? Because they say it's banned.
It was probably
challenged.
both. And what happens is, obviously the series has been so popular over the past decade. It's not really a surprise that Harry Potter tops the list, because when you look at these other books, they're all sort of older books, I think. And it is a shame to see that it's banned. And it's been challenged, and people have attempted to get it banned.
Right.
But, it's just a shame that people would actually try to prevent children from reading these books.
Well, maybe not even just children. It could be anybody. Maybe with respect to religion, they look to not allow anybody to get a hold of those books.
Right.
Aside from children.
It's fascinating. It makes me want to read these other ones here, like the Alice series by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. Like, I don't recall really ever hearing about this. And the fact that it is challenged or banned is very much interests me. The only one I do recognize other than the Potter series is number 5, which is Of Mice and Men.
Yeah.
And I didn't find that book to be that offensive, but... Yeah.
The books don't necessarily have to be published in this decade. No. I guess it's just...
Oh, yeah, how many...
Well, any book...
Right.
They received challenges in the past 10 years. This list from the American Library Association was for the years 2000 to 2009 overall.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all these books are from, the early to mid 20th century.
Yeah. Well, there's his Dark Miracles, too. It's on number 8. Oh, sorry. His Dark Materials.
What number is it?
Number 8.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What'd you say? Minerals?
Yeah. No, I said Miracles.
Oh,
Dark Miracles. It's a miracle! But it's dark.
What's interesting? The other thing I wanted to mention here is the Library Association, we've always heard about the Harry Potter books, people complaining that they contain witchcraft, and there have been, popular trials and all that, but it's just never been real to me, that it's so widespread that people really feel that there's something of conflict in the Harry series. For it to be the most challenged book series, there've got to be, obviously because they did their homework, there've got to be documented instances of people challenging these Harry Potter books more than any other book. I mean, that kind of made it real to me when I was reading it because, I heard the occasional, my parents think it's against, religion or whatever, but I didn't think it was actually real widespread actuality that these books were getting banned, but I guess they are.
All right, well, I'm banning the discussion of this story any further. How do you like that? How do you like that, ALA? Well, actually, ALA is not even the one to blame. It's they just gather the list of
Don't
requests.
shoot the messenger, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly.
But this isn't a surprise to anybody, I don't think.
Right. So let's move on.
All right.
Okay, Laura Mallory.
Well, I said there was a lot of Deathly Hallows news, and there is. 2 interviews were conducted, I guess probably about 2 weeks ago now. One with Tom Felton, the other with Matthew Lewis, and it both related to the end of Deathly Hallows and the final battle scene. Tom Felton referred to it as nonstop carnage, and Matt Lewis was quoted as saying it was bloody, gory, and harrowing. It includes more adult themes of death and violence, but it does stay true to the books by J.K. Rowling. So I was wondering, what do you guys think now that we've heard this? What's maybe not part 1, but what's part 2 going to be rated? Do you think it's going to stick to PG-13?
Yeah, they have to. You can't go up to R with a children's film. That would kill ticket sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, who says it's a children's film?
Nobody does, but that's the thing. If you even, there will be significantly less people will see the movie simply because it's rated R. Yeah. I mean, somehow that works.
And because kids can't get in on their own.
Yeah, that's true. So it does, I mean, to have a parent to sign for it, that stops people.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, it will. It would definitely put a dent in it.
Right.
And I think they would make sure, say they submitted this film and it got an R rating, they would do something to get it down to PG-13.
Yeah. They usually include a list of suggestions to get it down. And
and lately they've been pushing the whole PG-13, the whole border between PG-13 and R lately in films too. So
yeah, they have.
I think it can get pretty bloody and gory and still maintain a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I doubt we're going to see it be PG like Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I still
don't
get why why Half-Blood Prince was PG. Do you guys it
was? Well, I mean, it was a lot of there was more drama, I would probably say, than the other films. It was a lot of dialogue between the characters and not much of action, so to speak, with with special effects and stuff, with bodily fluids going anywhere or something. Unlike Goblet of Fire, when Peter Pettigrew cut off his hand.
Yeah,
it was also a comedy.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
comedies can't be rated R.
Maybe that was WB's way of ensuring that it didn't get too bad of a rating. They just started saying, "Oh, it's a comedy, and all the interviews, and then the parents who do the MPAA ratings, they were like, "Oh, it's a comedy, it can't be that bad."
Yeah. I want to start calling it a dramedy.
Dramedy.
Oh snaps! Getting pretty technical.
All right, and then on April the 18th, Magic Box Music, a trailer scoring company who has worked on Potter trailers before, revealed that they're working on the score for Part 1 of Deathly Hallows.
See, that shocked me. That shocked me that the trailer people, I mean, it makes sense, but that these people will edit the trailer together and they'll, I guess, compose a score for it that isn't part of the movie score.
Because they must be excited for this.
That's what they always do.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing like Pirates of the Caribbean, I think 2, the trailer for it, and it was using the same music as was used in like an X-Men trailer, like years before. And I remember that they recycled that, but I didn't know if it was the same studio or not. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. This was shocking to me that they're composing new music for this trailer when they could actually just use some of those epic, scene moments.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be epic, Eric. It's just going to be original. So this is probably going to be the theme that all the other trailers after this in the future are going to be copying.
Yeah.
Well, since they are working on it, hopefully that means that they are close to finalizing some sort of trailer. But then again, they could hold it back for a couple more months, as we will discuss momentarily with another.
Yeah, why don't we
story.
just jump right to that?
Let's do that.
Talk
Go
about
ahead.
it a little bit.
Be crazy, Micah.
Well, we got a little bit of a tip last night, since we're recording here on Sunday, that the Deathly Hallows PR machine is going to start spinning rapidly.
Can you use my comparison?
June.
I compared it to a choo-choo train.
Why don't you use that comparison?
Chugga
since
chugga
it's yours.
choo-choo! We're rolling, baby. Let's go. Promo train.
So, what did they mean? Did they call it a train or a machine or?
Well, sorry, Micah. Go ahead. Finish the story.
Well, we got word from somebody who spoke with the vice president of exhibitor services for Warner Brothers, domestic theatrical distribution. So basically what that means is she's in charge of the WB trailers and advertising materials for theaters in the United States and Canada. And she mentioned that there was going to be an aggressive marketing campaign, possibly with Twilight in June.
Well, she didn't say possibly. I think they're pretty set on. My impression is, so here's what happened. I won't call him crazy. Some fan who really wanted to know when the first trailer is going to come out, emailed a bunch of people at Warner Brothers, and this Kelly O'Connor responded. Now, poor Kelly O'Connor, she didn't realize it was a fan. She thought it was somebody who works at a movie theater emailing her and asking about the trailer. So she replied back. And I saw the whole email conversation, so this is how I gather that she got the wrong impression about this person emailing. So she thought it's a movie theater, worker. So she said, we're not working on Potter yet. Her exact quote is, they're going to launch an aggressive marketing campaign that launches with Twilight. And she's referring to Eclipse, the third movie, and that comes out June 30th. So I think around the end of June, that's when things are really going to start rolling out. And a lot of people in MuggleNet's comments thought it was interesting. They described it as an aggressive marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And, what could that mean? Well, banner ads like crazy all over the internet, TV commercials like crazy all over the internet.
Standees in places where you wouldn't ordinarily expect to find standees. Like the middle of the produce aisle. Yeah, the middle of your produce aisle at your supermarket. There's just going to be like a Voldemort kind of thing.
Buy these peanuts and see me in theaters this November.
Exactly. That's aggressive.
Do they really need to be aggressive, though?
I hope they do.
But I think, it's their final shot at doing all this. After Deathly Hallows, it's over. So they're just going to go all out.
I want it to feel like it did when Book 7 and Movie 5 were coming out.
I want to get sick to death of Harry Potter apparel and stuff. That's...
Well, and here's the other thing. If they are waiting till June to get things started, then that's why I think part of the reason it needs to be aggressive. Because it's not sort of like a slow build-up. It's just boom, all at once. 3 months beforehand isn't that long of a wait. You know what I'm saying? So they really got to push it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have other films that they have to worry about right now.
Right.
Well, yeah, and how interested are people going to be in that first film as opposed to the second one? I mean, they probably have to sell the first one a lot harder.
That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Fun bit related to the film itself is that Lego Harry Potter Years 1 to 4 is going to have a collector's edition. The game hasn't even been released yet. Is this common for video games?
No. In fact, I saw it and I was like, what? They're putting what with the game exactly in the book?
So there's going to be this exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows as part of this video game collector's edition. I'm not really sure what that's going to entail. Is it going to be completely new, or is it going to be something that we may see a few weeks, maybe a few days before the game is actually released?
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. I think it'll be with the game, and this game is supposed to come out June 29th.
Oh,
and that's when the
part of their
aggressive marketing campaign.
an aggressive Lego game.
All right, that's what I'm saying. Is it going to be a trailer that's going to be released a few days before, or do you think it's really going to be exclusive to the video game?
Actually,
I kind of agree with the first part, what you said, Micah, because
It'll be exclusive to the video game?
no, it's that there's going to be at least like a teaser or some kind of preview before this.
No. Look, this game comes out June 29th.
Right.
With the game is going to be an exclusive behind-the-scenes look.
Right.
Not a trailer. Then the trailer will come out with Eclipse.
Well, they do that with games, though. They do put movie trailers, like, in games. Like, I had an X-Men game a while back that had all this, like, exclusive X2 footage in it. It's just something that you can do, and especially with the next-gen systems with, live internet connection and Blu-ray and all that stuff, they're gonna probably, I mean, that's kind of the future of gaming is gonna be. If there's a movie game, they're gonna do some promos for it. So yeah, it's not uncommon, but what I was talking about initially was the magnets that are getting shipped with the game.
That's all kind of weird.
But I mean, the behind the scenes stuff in other games too, they kind of distribute it in between like each level too. Like I remember when I was playing the Lord of the Rings games for Xbox. Like after every level of the game, they would have like a quick like little excerpt of going behind the scenes in the film and even behind the scenes of the video game. So they could like disperse that throughout the game as well, and they may even begin it with a teaser or a trailer if they tend on releasing it before this game.
Yeah, I mean they look like they're going to put in some behind the scenes look at the video game as well. I mean, I guess Eric, that goes to your point of it being sort of next generational, and that's what they're doing with video games, but. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me that they're already making a collector's edition. It's $70.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a quick way to, boost profits. And I personally, I don't see anything on here worth the extra $20, with the exception of the exclusive behind the scenes look. But in the age of the internet, that's just going to come online anyway onto YouTube. So.
Right.
Nice birthday gifts, I guess. I am looking forward to this game. We've talked about it on the show a lot. I cannot wait to get it for PS3. It should look beautiful.
Oh, I thought we were going to get it on Wii.
No.
Oh.
I'm going to get it on Wii. I'll tell you how it is.
And I might be checking that game out in about a week or so.
That's right. Mike is going to a little Lego Harry Potter party in New York City to play the game for the first time. So that's cool.
That's awesome.
Let us know how it is.
I will.
Cool.
I will. It'll be right around the time the next show is released.
Good. You'll have a report.
Maybe.
When you're there, ask them, is this part of the aggressive marketing campaign that Warner Brothers is lining up?
So the final bit of news was that the Watford Observer reported this week that plans have now been approved and finalized to turn Leavesden Studios into a permanent studio.
Sweet.
What do you guys think of that?
Oh, nice.
Well, the bigger part of the story for Harry Potter fans is that there will be a permanent Harry Potter attraction. Right? I didn't know what else to call it, so I just wrote attraction. I'm not sure if that's the best word for it. Opening in 2012 in the studio. So they're going to preserve some of the Harry Potter sets, and you'll be able to pay something, and then you'll be able to go in and get a little tour of the Harry Potter sets, which is awesome, I think.
Yeah. Maybe it was just too big for them to move anywhere else. So
yeah, and plus it'll be cool for people to actually go to the studio where all 8 Harry Potter films were shot.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's the real sets really where they were, so that's cool. But I thought it was weird at first because, as you say, Andrew, you said last week too that even though the Warner Brothers studio lot in Burbank has costumes and props, on like a second floor museum. We got on there a lot. We got the Harry Potter exhibit, which is touring the world. And I really think there'll be something in the line of props at the Wizarding World theme park in Florida. So there are all these, permanent, attractions now that are going to have parts of these sets and parts of these movies pretty much all over. So it's very interesting.
What's interesting is they said that this redevelopment's going to cost £100 million. But what they're looking forward to, I guess on the positive side, is that it's going to create a lot of jobs for the local economy there.
Yeah, so it's great news, and I think it'll be exciting even if you're visiting London. I mean, it's about a 45-minute trip from London, and I think they're going to keep Dumbledore's office, because that's been there forever. The Great Hall, I hope. I mean, that's a big set, but they got to keep that one. That one's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's destroyed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I'm trying to think of sets that have been there all this time, and the main two are Dumbledore's office and the Great Hall. What they usually do is they build sets and they tear them down as soon as they're done with them, because they gotta keep making room. So it'll be interesting to see what else they keep. I wouldn't be surprised if they rebuild a couple things, because most stuff is gone. So maybe stuff from the creatures department, I bet, or the special effects departments. They have a ton of stuff they saved from there. So if you're in London when that opens up, or anywhere in England, you gotta go to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how their studio is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's right nearby neighborhood communities. It's just another one is the Privet Drive. That's been there, and that's an outdoor set. So I bet they'll keep that as well. So really exciting. I'm really glad to hear they'll be doing this.
Yeah.
So is that it, Micah?
That is it.
All right. Well, before we get to our interview with Warwick Davis, we have a reminder about the MuggleCast remix that we were talking about last episode on 196. As part of our episode 200 celebration, Eric is putting together a second MuggleCast remix, and he's looking for your favorite moments from episodes 26 to 100. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. If they can send you favorite moments by emailing eric@staff.mugglenet.com and putting MuggleCast remix in the subject line. And when you write to him, include we're looking for the timestamp of your favorite moment. So send Eric the episode number and the time that the moment starts at in the episodes. So, for example, 1 hour, 5 minutes, 58 seconds in.
Yeah. Exactly, and you can send more than one entry. It's more than welcome. I've had a few people send in, quite a lot of entries, which is great because it allows me to pick from the clips. But so far, I've only gotten 10 entries. 10 different people have sent an email in the past week, and I said initially because it's going to get take a while to put all these together. I said I was only going to accept entries for another week or so. But please do send emails. So far, the mix is, because I've only gotten 10 entries, the mix is going to be 5 minutes long and surprisingly include only Micah quotes. So.
Oh, I got to send some in then.
So, how did that work out?
I don't know, Micah. I don't know.
I bet it was Micah who sent in all that.
Had all the transcribers pull the
That's right.
timestamps and send them in on my behalf.
So visit MuggleCast.com, and the top news post on the site has the information. Thanks so much for your help. It's going to be really cool. You can also listen to the first remix that Eric made a long time ago. It was back
when it was when episode 25 was the most recent aired episode. Well.
All right. So now it is our time for our interview with Warwick Davis. We recorded it a few days ago, and we'll turn it over to that now. We are now joined by Warwick Davis, the actor who plays Flitwick and Griphook in the Harry Potter films. He joins us now, and Warwick has a new autobiography out called Size Matters Not, The Extraordinary Life and Career of Warwick Davis. It's in England bookstores now. Hey, Warwick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No problem. We're going to start with some Potter questions since that's the focus of our show.
Okay.
And obviously our listeners know all about you through Harry Potter.
All right. You're about to wrap up filming for Deathly Hallows. You recently said in an interview that you will be finished in June. What's the feeling like on set, and what are you going to miss the most about the franchise?
I mean, I've had such a wonderful experience on all of the films, and yeah, it will be sad to say goodbye to people that we've been working with for almost 10 years now, and become very close, and it's almost like a family kind of situation. I often liken it actually to going back to school, for a new term, and that was each film we would do was be the new term at school, and everybody's grown up, and now we're all about to kind of go and graduate and go our separate ways, and it's going to be sad, but I mean we'll always have the work that we've created to look back on as our legacy, really, for many, many years to come. I mean, the Harry Potter films are not things that will be forgotten about very quickly. So, we'll always be very proud of what we've achieved in the 10 years.
Yeah, and you've now been a part of two of the most popular movie franchises in history, Star Wars and Harry Potter. Did you ever think, like 10 years ago, that Potter would have become this kind of phenomenon, sort of like Star Wars did? And how does it differ from Star Wars?
I mean, it is amazing, and I don't think that, I ever took it for granted that there would be a sequel each time. I've taken each movie as it came along, and always been hopeful that my character would appear in the screenplay, because, of course, in the translation from novel to screenplay, many characters are often not included just for time's sake, and also for kind of the way that the screenplay has been constructed. So, I was always grateful that the characters that I was involved with had made it into the adaptations each time. And I mean, I suppose when we got to about number 4 and number 5, it became quite clear that this is probably going to go all the way now. But certainly for the first 2 or 3, we were pretty unsure each time, and just you would look at the success of the film and just keep your fingers crossed that indeed we'd all be asked back to continue with this. And I mean, I suppose that the similarity between Potter and Star Wars is that the story is a very, very big story, and it's broken up obviously into different parts, but you can look at it as a whole thing. It would be lovely to be able to sit down, as you can with Star Wars, and watch all 6 parts, and with Potter you'll be able to sit down and watch 8 films, and I think you'll see them very differently then. We're all used to seeing the different episodes, different movies as we've gone through, but now we can sit back and look at the whole thing as one piece, and that'll be quite an experience. I'm sure there'll be many Potter fans throughout the world doing these sort of marathon Potter viewings in the future, which will be fantastic.
Absolutely, and you recently said about Deathly Hallows, the split into 2 films, that you thought it was a good idea because it's going to do justice to the final book of the series. Now, based upon what you've filmed so far, and I guess what you can say, do you believe that these 2 movies are going to stay true to the book, possibly more so than any that have come before them?
I've got to be careful how I answer any of this. But, I mean, I often look at the films versus the novels, because this is a kind of a question that comes up, and a kind of a debate, I suppose, amongst people who read the novel and fans of the films, etc., as to do with the similarities. But I like to view them as kind of separate pieces of art in their own right, so that obviously the films are based on the book, but I think they should stand beside each other, but also you could see them very differently. I don't see that we have to be worried about them particularly following the book, and if the producers want to embellish on certain things more than the novel was able to, then I think that's all fine as well. There has to be a certain amount of artistic license allowed, otherwise it becomes very sort of restrictive to make a film based on a book. But yeah, as I can't really comment on anything regarding Deathly Hallows in that respect, I'm afraid.
Right. Did you ever have any discussions with J.K. Rowling about the characters of Flitwick and Griphook to help you prepare for the roles?
Well, I mean, all of the preparation I did for any of the characters was based on the books and descriptions and that sort of thing from those novels. So I've never had any direct discussion with her to say, how should this be done, etc. I've gleaned all of that from reading the book and interpreting that, and hopefully interpreting in the way that all of the readers out there best imagine it, because, you know, the human imagination is a wonderful thing, and you know, as filmmakers and actors, we can never hope to get close to how wondrous, you know, the images that you can create in your mind are. But, you know, we can do our best guess at that and try and find a middle ground, and that's certainly what I did with, you know, the characters that I play, is try and find a best guess at the interpretation to try and suit most people. And you know, I think on the whole, I've managed to do that. And J.K. Rowling, I did ask her after the first film, you know, how was Flitwick, and she said he was very good, thank you. So, you know, that's about as much as I've got as far as, you know, kind of direction, etc. went for character.
Right. It must be great to hear, you know, the author tell you that you did a great job putting him on
absolutely,
film.
Yeah, because it's always in the back of your mind, as I said.
Right.
You kind of wonder, are you doing justice to the literary work, and and is this all as it should be? Yeah, she's never made any complaints, so I assume I'm cool with this.
Good.
Well, how big of a fan of the books were you prior to the films? You know, were you just as eager to get as everyone else to get your hands on a copy of the next book?
Well, it's funny, you know, it was several years before the films were even talked about that I first heard about the books, and it was while I was working on another project, and one of the actresses had this book entitled Harry Potter, and we were actually travelling to the location on a minibus, and I said, "What's this book you're reading?" She said, "Oh, it's a fantasy book. It's really great." And she said, "If they ever made it into a film, you know, there'd be characters for you to play." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." Anyway, that was the kind of last I heard of it for a couple of years, until my agent called up and said, you know, we've got this script coming, and there's a part they would like you to audition for in Harry Potter. And by then, you know, the books were obviously becoming quite a sensation, and you know, so I was like very impressed and very excited then to be able to audition for this, and it was a nerve-wracking experience. I described this in my book, actually going up to the studios at Leavesden in North London, and meeting with Chris Columbus and the producers, and actually having to do the audition, which went very well, and it you know, it left me with a really good feeling and a very positive feeling. But then, not hearing anything for 3 weeks after that, no phone calls, nothing, you then start to really doubt yourself, and actors by their nature are insecure characters, and I just became very insecure at the whole thing. Thought I must have really messed that up, because you know, I've not heard anything, and when you don't hear anything, that means you didn't get it. They don't phone you to say, "Sorry, thanks for coming in, but we don't need you."
Right.
They only phone to say when they want you, and I thought, it's been way too long now, 3 weeks. But as you know, the fact I'm talking to you now testifies, I did indeed get a call just after 3 weeks from my agent, and it was wonderful, because he said, you know, they'd love to offer you the part of Flitwick. I said, that's fantastic, you know, because Flitwick was a dream role for me. He's a character that I had played in some old home movies that I made in my bedroom. I used to play this kind of mad professor sort of character, and I'd be sort of in this little laboratory mixing up potions and things. And he was the genesis and the sort of seed for Professor Flitwick. So he was a character I'd always wanted to play. But not only did my agent say, you know, you've got that role, but he said, wait a minute, you know, are you sitting down, because they would like you to play another character, the Goblin Bank Teller. So I sort of, you know, hit the jackpot twice, as it were. And it was just a wonderful, you know, honour, and you know, to be part of it. But as I said earlier, little did I know it was going to lead on to be sort of 10 years worth of acting work.
Yeah. And off of that, I mean, you've been on these films since the very beginning. Are you someone who believes the films could have benefited in a certain way from one director, or do you think that all these situations, you know, you've had 4 different directors now, do you think they bring a sort of different dynamic to the series that adds to it?
I think it's been really nice to have a sort of a different director for many of the films now, as you say, 4 different directors, because they've all brought their own little piece of magic to it, their own little touches to it.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Columbus was perfect for the first 2 movies, because he's a brilliant director in bringing out great performances from youngsters, and you know, Dan, Rupert, and Emma were very, very young then. I don't know exactly how old they were, but I think they were around about 10 or maybe slightly younger than that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to have a director who knows what he's doing to get the performances out of the actors at that age. And I do remember one thing that Chris did. He had lots of little techniques and lots of little tricks he'd try to get the reactions that he wanted, and it was really a reaction I wanted from Dan for him first seeing the Goblin bank teller. He wasn't really reacting in the way that Chris wanted, and so he said to me very quiet, he said, when we start rolling on this close-up of Dan, he said, I want you to just do something extreme all of a sudden so we get a reaction. So I said, all right, okay, leave it with me. So they start rolling, and Chris shouts action, and we start the dialogue, and all of a sudden I just yelled and screamed right in his face as loud as I could, and all he did was looked at me blankly and then just burst out laughing. It had completely it didn't have the desired effect at all. But so Chris was really great for that sort of thing, and I thought he also brought a kind of an innocence and magic to those first films, because again, you know, Harry was coming into this as we were the audience and kind of, you know, being introduced to Hogwarts. And I thought it's just sort of that beautiful innocence about that film. And then also that then led into the next one. And Alfonso Cuarón, again, started to turn things a little bit darker. You know, the books and the novels were becoming darker and the characters were growing up. So, you know, again, that was a really sort of interesting style that he had, and I think it did lend itself very well. And then Michael Newell, who directed number 4. I mean, he reminded me, actually, I went to public school here in the UK, and he's very much like a public school headmaster in his own personality. And, you know, and Hogwarts reminds me of my school as well. So really? He kind of came into this and really had a great sense of how that kind of school environment should be, and the adolescence and all of that sort of thing, how that kind of that tension was starting to build in the stories as well. So and then finally David Yates, who's the most marvelous director as well. A complete contrast to Michael Newell and the others, but again brings his own sort of fine detail and precision to the whole thing. And you know, I particularly enjoyed working with David on these. And you know, what an achievement though to actually work and have directed 4 of these films in very quick succession. I mean, it's something that, you know, a director gives their sort of soul to something, and to do that 4 times in a row is just a tremendous achievement. And I certainly enjoyed working with him, and he's given me so many lovely opportunities, you know, as far as characters and scenes and things. You know, we'll often discuss, you know, I often drop hints of other things I could possibly do in the films, and you know, he takes them all on board as well, which is fab. Yeah,
that's great. And since you are so experienced in the film industry, we wanted to ask you about the recognition that the Harry Potter films gets in the industry. This series already is, and will no doubt hold the record, if not for a very long time, perhaps forever, as the highest-grossing film franchise of all time. Do you believe that the Potter films don't get the respect they deserve from the Oscars? And do you think that movies 7 and 8 could possibly, you know, break through with an Oscar nomination? What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I've often wondered this and considered, you know, Oscars and how the voting and things works. And, you know, the voting is done by the sort of industry professionals and kind of, you know, the peers of the films that are actually, you know, up for nomination, etc. And I think that, you know, possibly sometimes these huge blockbusters don't often benefit, you know, where they should, because of the fact that, you know, I don't know, perhaps there might be some envy within the voting part of the industry that these are so successful, and it takes away a little bit from the art of the whole thing. Yeah. But, you know, you look at these films, you know, you look at the Harry Potter movies, and they're just so much wonderful work and skill. I mean, you know, knowing this from working on the films, I know how many people just go into putting me on set, basically, how much preparation there is for my makeups, for you know, it's many man hours and a big team of people just to deal with one character. Yeah. And so, you know, you watch the films, and there's the wonderful music and the special effects, and I think we're starting to actually take it for granted because it is all so good all the time. Yeah. You actually are starting not to notice when stuff's effects. You just actually take it for granted now. But each time we just do the best job we can, and we actually raise the bar each time, because the next film we do, we've got to be better than we were before.
Right.
And so we're honing all of the skills all the time. So it would be lovely to get some recognition for the films and for all the brilliant people that have worked on them. They all deserve recognition and awards, certainly, for the brilliant work.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, what's your personal favorite film in the series? Putting aside Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
Up to this point.
I think it's probably Prisoner of Azkaban, actually, because I very much like that book, and I just think the film works very well. The way that I love the time turning sequence, and when I read that, I was very looking forward to seeing it. How it was going to be put on screen, and again, I think it's just done so well. So yeah, that for me is a favourite. But I got loads of favourite moments in all of the others. It's hard to pick a favourite thing, but yeah, I do enjoy that one.
So you enjoyed the crowd surfing in Goblet of Fire?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing I talk about in my book as well. Just the fact that what started as a kind of a jokey suggestion. Not even a suggestion, actually, just kind of a joke, to say to Michael Newell, ended up being something we shot in the movie. And that was what was great about him. I could often suggest ideas, and Michael would take them on board, and we'd do them. And there was so much wonderful material, from that film that never made it into the movie. I mean, you got to see Flitwick playing air guitar and stuff. There's loads of stuff. Yeah,
cool.
I mean, it'd be lovely in the future to see it as some sort of Easter egg on the DVD. But
right.
There's so much that doesn't make it into the film, and as an actor, you always see that when you watch your movies. You always see the first time you watch it, you always see what isn't there. That's the first things that you notice is, oh, that's been cut, that's missing, they didn't use that. Right. Then the second time you watch it, you enjoy it for what it is, but yeah, you always end up seeing what's not there, and more often than not, the majority of what you do in films is kind of is lost to the cutting room floor, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also had that great little fist pump when the Weasley twins fly away at the in Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, that was good. And we shot that actually fairly early on, and then David thought it was really, really nice if we kind of gave that a bit more justification. And then we went and shot the scene where she comes and measures Flitwick, and that kind of gave a little bit more of the motivation, because it was like, how kind of cheeky is that? I'm not measuring up to the standards now in Hogwarts. I'm actually too short. Which is brilliant. I thought that was actually inspired. That was a great moment.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Go
ahead. No, I was just going to say, who's your favorite character aside from Flitwick or Griphook in the series?
I think it's got to be Professor Snape. He's the one I would love to have played. I mean, he's just a brilliant character. Alan is a brilliant actor and just portrays the character so well. And I just love watching him. He's just mesmerizing, isn't he? He's sort of almost hypnotic in a way.
Yeah.
And the way that he also splits his dialogue up and uses the phrasing is the most unusual phrasing, and the pauses are all in in the literary sense, all in the wrong places, but it just works so perfectly for that character. It's fascinating to watch Alan, when he's portraying the character on set.
Yeah, you
never know what you're going to get, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah. The Harry Potter theme park is going to be opening up soon, and you have children. Are you excited to take them there? Any plans to visit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I shall be there, and yeah, the kids are going to love that too. I mean, my children, who are 7 and 13, Annabelle and Harrison, are very fortunate because they've been, to what I would term the real Hogwarts quite a lot of times now. But to them now, it's not that exciting. It's Dad's work.
Yeah,
it's my office they go to, and But yeah, it's going to be a magical place. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you get to choose, you get to go and get a wand and all of this stuff. It's going to be just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it immensely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So let's talk more about your book now. What kind of Harry Potter related stories can we expect to find in Size Matters Not?
Well, we've sort of brushed upon a few there that we've already talked about, but I talk about Michael Gambon and his beard troubles. There's quite a few little nice stories in there as well, and I ran this past the production. I said, it's all okay to talk about what I'm talking about in this, and David Heyman, the producer, read it, and he was very generous in offering a quote, and he was enthralled by it and enjoyed it very much, which was really nice, because I'm obviously very conscious that the franchise has been very good to me, and I enjoyed it so much, but I also owe it as much respect as I can, and I just wanted to make sure I was everything I wrote was what was good to write about. And so there's some fun stories. Mostly it's fun stuff. I talk a bit about the makeup, my makeup artists, and the kind of the torture of sitting in the makeup chair for many hours every day. So it's all good stuff. Yeah.
So how did you get the idea to write this book? When did you decide, okay, I'm going to do my autobiography?
Well, for the past sort of 5 years, I've had a few approaches from publishers who have said, would you like to write a book? And I've just brushed them aside and thought, well, I don't really know what I'm going to write about. I thought you had to write an autobiography when you were about 60 or 70. And I was just like, I don't really know. And then I thought, it suddenly occurred to me about 2 years ago, really I should do this, and I happened to have a meeting with a publisher, and it sort of all fell into place. And I sat down, though, to write the book, and it's quite a lonely thing to do, to sit there and look at a blank piece of paper. And I thought, well, where do I start? I guess at the beginning, But then I thought, I don't remember the beginning. So I thought, well, I'll talk to Mum and Dad. And so then you start talking to people who are, influential in your life, and you start piecing. It's like a jigsaw, and you find all the bullet points, So it was like being born, going to school, then first work on Return of the Jedi, big break into the movie business, and then you find, Labyrinth, and you've got Willow, and then you maybe go, Leprechaun then, and then you got Star Wars again, and then Harry Potter. So you kind of do all that, and then you go back and you then start filling in the details that happened all in between that, you see, and then some sort of family, then, meeting my wife, and then having children and all that. And so it was a really wonderful experience. It made me actually stand back a bit and say, wow, I've actually done quite a lot, because when you're living the life and the career, I'd sort of taken it for granted a bit, what I was doing.
Yeah. So
when I stood back and wrote the book, I was like, gosh, this is quite, I've achieved quite a lot in 40 years so far, and, it was really, made me appreciate it, I suppose, a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the foreword to your book was written by George Lucas. Do you still keep in touch with him on a regular basis?
Oh, absolutely, very much so. I mean, when you work for Lucasfilm, you become part of the Lucasfilm family. So I have many great friends who work for Lucasfilm still, and it didn't take any persuading for George to write this, And I thought he was just the right person to do it, because he has been so influential in my career. He gave me my big break, and has continued to give me great opportunities, all the way through my career. And so he was a really great person. But little did I know he'd write such nice things about me. I didn't know he held me in that regard quite, So it was really quite an honour, and it's very flattering what he's written.
Yeah, that's great. And a little more about Star Wars. Do you attend any of the cast reunions? And what were your thoughts on the making of the prequels?
Well, I do keep in touch with many of the cast, because I attend Star Wars events, Star Wars celebrations in America, and Star Wars celebration in Europe here. And so, I see many of the cast quite often. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice. I mean, it's the fan community is still as enthusiastic as ever, even though we haven't had a movie for quite a few years now. But soon to have the live-action TV series, which I hope to get in somewhere. I'd like to be a villain, though, this time. I want to play a sort of villainous character in the TV series. But,
cool.
Yeah, it'd be good. I mean, the villain's a great sort of character to play anyway. Any actor will tell you that. The villains are always the sort of the best ones. And the prequels, I mean, yeah, it wasn't like Harry Potter because we had this huge gap in between, and everyone was anticipating. And in that big gap that was in between, I was dropping lots of hints to George to say, when you get around to making these films, I'd love to be part of them. And eventually, in '97, he got around to doing episode 1, which was great. And a lot of people go, they prefer one trilogy or the other, I think it's really what you grew up with. I grew up with the classic trilogy. I was 7 when I saw Star Wars. They feel like I kind of feel ownership of those films. But I think it just depends on how old you are. My kids are actually, they're kind of more drawn to the prequels. Do you know what I mean? Because they were growing up and not growing up when those films came out. So,
right.
I think it's all kind of relative in a way.
Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned villains, and you mentioned the Leprechaun before, and I can tell you that movie still gives me nightmares every time I see it. Do you ever look back and think...
I've just traumatized you there as well, haven't I?
Yeah, exactly. I have to jump off the headset right now. I mean, do you ever look back at that film in particular and think, man, I was pretty creepy in that film?
I thought you were going to say, do you ever look back and regret it?
No.
I mean, I don't suppose I look back like that. I mean, oh boy. I mean, the Leprechaun came about. I mean, again, this is something I talk about in the book. I have some wonderful stories about Leprechaun in there and the kind of becoming involved with the project. But, up until that point, in 1991, I had only ever played kind of good characters, Ewoks and goblins and then Willow. And so, I was being perceived as the actor who could play nice, short characters. And then when the script arrived, I was like, hey, this guy's a baddie, he gets to do pretty bad things. This is something I want to do because it's going to show that I've got sort of diversity in my performance and everything, and that I can do, not just nice guys. And so, I jumped at the opportunity, and again, little did I know at that point we're going to do 6 of these things through the years. But he's a very fun character to play. I'm quite fond of him, and he's just so extreme. I can just let loose, and there are no boundaries on him. You can just be as crazy as you like, and it's probably better that you are. And there's a following out there for these films. If I had the money, I would make Leprechaun 7 myself because I know it would sell. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, and I think a great number 7 would be a Leprechaun kind of crossed with a Pirates movie. Do you know what I mean? So, in other words, either the pirates have just stolen the Leprechaun's gold, or what have you. It would work perfectly. They all like drinking, and I think it would be fantastic. I'm going to actually call Johnny Depp and see if he wants to do it.
Are you really? That would be awesome.
Fantastic, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be great? So, but anyway, I mean, it's I do appreciate all of the demented Leprechaun fans out there. Thank you for supporting them.
Well, just going back to Potter for 1 second, one of the questions that seems to come up the most often is if you could take one prop from the set of all these films, what would it be? Like, what would you love to have on the mantelpiece at home?
You know what would be lovely? And I'm sitting here as I'm talking to you looking at a prop that I have from Willow. I have a Willow wand in a frame on the wall here. And I would love a Harry Potter wand in a frame just next to that.
Right.
I think it would be marvellous. So that would be the one thing. I mean, I think all of the professors would tell you exactly the same thing. All of the faculty at Hogwarts would love to have their wand at the end of all of this. But who knows? Yeah, that would be the one. That would be the one.
So you could pick it up from time to time and reenact that classic scene from Sorcerer's Stone, the swish and flick.
Oh, I do enjoy the swish and flick, absolutely. And I do a lot of talks at schools about acting and how youngsters might get into acting. And at one point somebody asked me about that, and I'll always end up doing a little charms class with everybody, and it's quite magical, to see all of the kids kind of practicing their swish and flick with Guardian Leviosa.
That's it. It brings us all back.
Absolutely, yeah.
before we wrap this up, any other projects you have lined up in the near future?
Well, I'm actually currently developing a new comedy series called Life's Too Short with Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, who are the creators of The Office and Extras.
Right.
Who I knew from working on the Extras series 2 in the episode with Dan Radcliffe in. So we're developing a comedy for the BBC at the moment, and we'll shoot the pilot in June. With a view to going to series. So it's all very exciting.
Cool. All right, well, Warwick, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Again, your new book, The Extraordinary Life and Career of Warwick Davis, is in England bookstores now, and it'll be hitting the United States probably a couple months, hopefully?
Absolutely. We're just working out the final sort of arrangements on all of that. And so, hopefully it'll be stateside very soon.
Great. And we can all follow you on Twitter, which is your username. Well, people can access it by going to twitter.com/WarwickADavis. And we'll
absolutely
include a link
follow
to
me.
Follow your extraordinary life and career.
Oh, yes. There's all sorts of nonsense I talk about on there. It's rather fun.
Cool. All right, great. Warwick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, there you have it. We hope you all enjoyed that interview. Warwick is such a funny guy. It was fun recording with him, wasn't it, Micah?
Yeah, absolutely. He really got into character there towards the end.
Yes, he did. That was funny. So now it's time for Chapter by Chapter. We're inching closer to the end of Prisoner of Azkaban, and this week we are looking at chapters 18 and 19 of the book. But first, it's time for another Chapter by Chapter intro. This one is from Vincent, and being a Lady Gaga fan myself, I really enjoyed this one. So you guys take a listen.
Introducing chapter, here we go and by chapter by chapter, yeah, we go and one chapter at a time.
That's trippy.
That was sent in by Vincent. That was crazy. It's like it just punches you. It's like, boom, chapter by chapter.
Do.
Well, thank you, Vincent. And we'll play more entries as, we continue this segment through MuggleCast's life. By the way, if you have your own chapter by chapter intro, if you would like to create one yourself, feel free to do so. Then send it in to andrew@staff.mugglenet.com. And in the subject line, just put chapter by chapter intro. So anyway, Micah is going to lead us through the first chapter, chapter 18. Which is Moony, Wormtail, Patfoot, Prongs. It's
actually a pretty short chapter.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like 2 pages long.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean it's at least 3.
Yeah, come on now. But a lot of information in those 3 pages.
Yeah,
and it starts off with Sirius going after Scabbers. And he tries to kill him right then and there. He doesn't want to wait any longer, but Lupin steps in and prevents him. And he says that Sirius owes it to Harry to tell him the truth. And so during this whole conversation, Ron and Harry think Sirius and Lupin are completely out of their minds. They basically try to explain, because the last chapter ended with the big reveal that Scabbers is in fact Peter Pettigrew, and they just don't want to believe it. They think that, these two guys are just bonkers. And my question is, though, after just seeing Sirius transform from a dog and learning that he's an animagus, why would they find it so hard to believe that Scabbers could be an animagus as well?
Well, because they've spent so much time with Scabbers, though, right?
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, he was Ron's pet for so long, for 12 years.
Well, Percy's pet before that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where even like, for instance, when you find out like one of your family members is a convicted killer or rapist or something. It's like you just don't. It doesn't fathom you at first because you have a relationship with this person.
I think without knowing Peter Pettigrew's personality, that he was like a coward, was always the runt of the pack, as McGonagall had said earlier. Without knowing that, it just doesn't seem reasonable that he would stay a rat, and kind of hide out being a rat for 12 years. It doesn't seem like a glamorous life. And, so when they hear that Ron's rat is actually a person. I think they really, they just need to know more information. I don't really, especially in this chapter, I don't think Hermione's that opposed to the idea, because she's got this conflict where she trusts teachers, but of course he's a werewolf. She's been holding out on him. You're talking about Lupin, and soon into the story, she interjects and says, but they would know because there's a register of animagi, and they have an answer for that. So only when. I think Hermione is, and all of them even are on their way to being convinced. It's just, initially it seems really odd because, Ron's rat has always been Ron's rat, for such a long time, and they just don't know why he would hide out as a rat if he were actually alive and a person, etc. So I think they need the story told to them, and Lupin is quick to hold Sirius back from acting so that they can get the story out.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a lot to take in this particular chapter. I mean, you're learning all these things that seem completely outlandish, in the wizarding world, never mind, as a reader. So the conversation continues, and they hear a creak outside. But Lupin goes out and looks and determines that nobody is there, or so he thinks. And Ron comments that the place is haunted. Now, Lupin tells Ron that this is in fact not true. And he goes through his whole story of how he became a werewolf, and how Dumbledore took precautions in order to let him be a student at Hogwarts. And, he recounts the Whomping Willow, the creation of the underground passage, and the Shrieking Shack. And, we start to get a whole lot of backstory about the tree, which has been there and played a huge role in the second book, and, the shack, which played a larger role earlier on in the book. But things start tying together, and I thought it was interesting backstory, a lot of which was left out of the movie. This chapter is basically omitted from the book, with the exception of a few things, and I think not omitted from the book, omitted from the movie. And I think that was one of the major problems people had with Prisoner of Azkaban as a whole, aside from the director and all that other fun stuff. But I think this was the biggest issue. Like, looking at this chapter in particular, this backstory that we're talking about, what do you guys think? Well,
especially since the films, we saw the Whomping Willow featured especially in Chamber of Secrets when Harry and Ron run into it. So it would have been nice for people who are just watching the movie to see that, to understand the backstory of the Whomping Willow, which is pretty interesting. And I was going to say how fitting that we're talking about the Whomping Willow today, since we just passed Earth Day the other day.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Be kind to your Whomping Willow. Yeah, anyway, to that point, I just think the movie focused on... the movie didn't focus on the world of Harry Potter. It focused on making a movie
the plot.
and then the characters, but it didn't focus on fleshing out the world, which is what I think the first two movies steadily in progression did, which is, just a different choice of director. But that's why this chapter was almost, always omitted, except for the sentences, your rat is Peter Pettigrew, and possibly a no here or there. This chapter was completely absent from the movie.
Yeah, and so we learned that Sirius, James, and Peter all became animagi in order to keep Remus company when he turned into a werewolf. And Remus mentions that they were roaming the school grounds and the village by night. So I'm going to ask the obvious question, being, how did Dumbledore never once spot them at all throughout all the years that they're at Hogwarts? I think they said that Peter could finally transform in their 5th year. So let's say 3 years they were all, maybe even some before that, for Sirius and James. They're just walking around Hogwarts and Hogsmeade, and nobody notices them. There were a couple of close encounters that they had. Nobody ever reported this. It just seems weird to me, that they just all did this under Dumbledore's nose, knowing how smart and powerful he is, that never got caught once.
Do you think Dumbledore really didn't know, though?
Yeah, he had to not have known, because he would have known then that Sirius was an animagus.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Which is, I was asking the same question, Matt, like a minute ago, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, but Dumbledore didn't know, otherwise he would have had different safeguards. Sirius wouldn't have been able to get into the castle. But
Right.
that said, like, I just I think I think around the time that Harry's parents were in school was also about, you know, maybe a few years before the heyday of Lord Voldemort. So maybe Dumbledore was just really that preoccupied.
It's possible. But Hermione also mentions the point that, you know, it was dangerous for Lupin to do this. Always the one to bring up the obvious. But, you know, it sounded like the mother. It was dangerous. There's no question. But also that, you know, and Lupin really feels bad, at this point in the chapter because, you know, he feels as if he's betrayed Dumbledore's trust. And
why,
you know,
now though? I mean, why are you just realizing this now?
Well, I know.
Now that he is
Hermione's
exposed,
words
he's feeling
have
bad.
an impact on him. Like,
Yeah.
even Ron's, like, he cares for these kids.
Yeah, so I guess that is a testament to the relationship he has with them.
Yeah, he says, all this year I've been battling with myself, wondering whether I should tell Dumbledore that Sirius was an animagus, but I didn't do it. Why? Because I was too cowardly. It would have meant admitting that I betrayed his trust while I was at school, admitting that I'd led others along with me, and Dumbledore's trust has meant everything to me. But, you know, I just decided to
It is quite
piss on it, basically.
Yeah, if it's ever a question, should you tell Dumbledore something or shouldn't you tell Dumbledore? So, well, you probably should.
Yeah, because
Yeah, you probably should.
Odds
All right,
are he probably
moving
already
on.
knows.
But Andrew, you asked this question. Would Dumbledore have approved of James, Pettigrew, and Sirius transforming into animagi in order to help Lupin deal with his unwanted ability? If it was for the sake of helping students, maybe, or helping a student, maybe Dumbledore wouldn't have minded.
Yeah, I think Dumbledore would have understood this situation. I mean, he already went out of his way to set up this place for Lupin to go to transform into a werewolf. Obviously, Dumbledore knows that as a student growing up in Hogwarts, you need to have some friends. You need to be surrounded by people who care about you, especially when you have to deal with something like this, being able to transform into a werewolf. So I think he would have understood, and I think he would have admired that James, Sirius, and Peter were all trying to help their friend out.
Agree, actually, and especially their aptitude of becoming an animagus. Like, it takes years to, I guess, learn how to do it. And
Right. And then there's only 7 who are registered.
Yeah, and it's noted in the book. I think it took them 2 or 3 years to master it. So
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but them being out on the town in animagus
Nearly
form
killing people.
led to the Marauders map. And Lupin reveals who the other 3 on the map are. He had revealed that he had helped make the map earlier on in the book. But I mean, this must be kind of weird for Harry, though, you know, learning all of this about his father in particular, and that these were all his best friends, and they had kind of just been hanging around him for this entire year, and he had absolutely no clue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Harry's at a very interesting point this year. I mean, every time his dad is mentioned, especially in these chapters, he's, you know, a different emotion comes out of him. You know, at first Sirius mentions his name and Harry's like, don't say his name, you killed him. And Sirius is like, oh, I as good as killed him, and, you know, goes into the story. But every time James is mentioned, you know, Harry is just being tugged, because it's kind of like what he's been going through with the Dementors, where he hears his mother's voice. You know, it's knowledge about his parents that he just didn't expect to find. And here they're telling these stories, and he feels like he's, you know, among friends eventually.
Right. But what's interesting is that never once is it mentioned what animagus form James took. He says that James was called Prongs, but they never specify, you know, what his animagus form was in this chapter anyway. Which is what makes so much confusion, I think, later on.
Well, I think the subject, too, is on Peter Pettigrew at the moment, so they do limit it, but...
Yeah. So Lupin continues his storytelling, and he tells about how Dumbledore appointed him to Defense Against the Dark Arts, and he also makes Sirius aware of the fact that Snape is at Hogwarts as well, teaching potions, and Sirius doesn't seem to like that too much. And but one thing that I thought about while reading this is that Dumbledore really believes in taking risks and are giving second chances. You know, Snape, a former Death Eater, he's teaching potions. Lupin is a werewolf, he's teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts. Hagrid is a half giant, and he's been expelled from Hogwarts at one point. He's teaching care of magical creatures. Trelawney, who's kind of a kook, a drunk, and a fraud, is teaching divination. So it's kind of like, I don't even know, like a hodgepodge of
Castle for Misfits.
social outcasts. Yeah, exactly.
But this is the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry.
Yeah, it definitely
It's
is.
the only one in Britain.
Yeah. So, but next we learn the story of how Sirius played a trick on Snape that almost killed him. And this goes back to Sorcerer's Stone when Harry learned that his father had saved Snape's life. And that James had done this at great personal risk to himself. And this was the whole night that Snape learned about Lupin's condition. Snape saw Madame Pomfrey taking Lupin out to the Whomping Willow, and he figured he would follow, and in the process almost got killed. So, interesting how James saves Snape, but how Snape just can't seem to get over the fact that I don't know, maybe James just treated him that bad the rest of their time at Hogwarts. What do you guys think? I mean,
Hanging him upside
you think
down,
the relationship would be a bit better?
Pants, it's kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Once you get hung upside down by your underpants, using his own spell against him, stealing his girl.
There's more on this in the next chapter, so I'll talk about it there.
Yeah. The other just kind of final bit of information from this chapter we learned is that Snape has been brewing the Wolfsbane potion for Lupin. And, I kind of wonder, is that something he's doing against his own will? He obviously wasn't really happy with Lupin being pointed to this position. But, the other thing is that this Wolfsbane potion is mentioned in Sorcerer's Stone. It's also mentioned with the Bezoar and the Drought of Living Death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting how all three of those end up playing a role later on in the series. It's kind of like one of those mentioned in passing bits
that
they end up playing a much larger role.
How's the Drought of Living Death?
Well, they have to brew it, or is that peace? Or I don't remember. I thought they had to brew it in for Slughorn and Half-Blood.
He mentions it in the movie. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah. But I don't think Snape can do, I don't think Dumbledore can make Snape do anything. Make Snape do anything. I think what it is, and it is a testament to Snape, because Lupin says, it's a difficult potion to brew, and I owe Snape, I don't know if he says my life, but he says I really owe Snape for that. I think later in book 5 or 6, when Harry is talking bad on Snape, Lupin specifically reminds him that he can't really have anything against Snape because he kept him away from transforming. And I think, Snape knows the danger of, students or anybody coming into contact with a full werewolf from his almost, near-death experience. So I just think, Snape, it is a testament to his character that he's brewing this potion for Lupin, and I think he is doing it against his, best wishes, but he understands why he's doing it. And I think that is one of the clues that Snape is actually, at least reasonable, a reasonable human being from time to time.
Yeah, so once Lupin is done telling the story to Harry about how his father saves Snape, Snape arrives in the room from under the invisibility cloak, so that whole creak that they heard earlier on in the chapter was in fact Snape hiding out. He seems to have a knack for that, doesn't he?
Hiding out.
He likes listening outside doors. He did it in the what was it?
Even sooner than that.
The Three Broomsticks.
Even sooner than that, he did it when his parents were fighting. When Harry finds his memory or whatever, when his leclumency backfires or whatever,
he's just a sneaky little fellow.
He's like a kid. And, yeah.
So the chapter 19, the servant of Lord Voldemort, opens up with everyone in awe that Snape has arrived, and Snape reveals he made his way in thanks to the invisibility cloak that Harry had conveniently left right outside.
Again.
And I was wondering that I was thinking he can actually fit under that cloak, because, in the books is always described as, Harry, the trio's feet are sort of sticking out from under it. So I guess Snape must have had to crouch down low to fit under it, which could not be good for his back.
I think that's in the movies, though, where their feet are sticking out or whatever. I think in the books, they actually remark at how it still fits them after so many years.
Darn.
I think that's the movie where they show, because to show them completely covered by the cloak would be like not having them in the scene. So they always show Harry with his arm out, holding the lantern and crap, when really they... Yeah, I think it's a movie.
I just like to imagine Snape struggling with the cloak.
With his back, yeah.
His back.
You just want to see him suffer.
So Snape begins telling Lupin off, thinking that Lupin has been helping Sirius get into the castle to kill Harry. I mean, Snape is enraged at this point. And at this moment, Harry, I think, must be in love with Snape for once. Because here's the one time a person he trusts dearly, Lupin, has betrayed him. Or at least he thinks so. And then enters Snape to save the day. Did you guys all get the same impression?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like Snape.
What do you mean in love with Snape? Like, do you mean glad he's there? Or?
Yeah, glad he's there Snape agrees with Harry, or vice versa.
No. Well, Snape agreed the fact that he doesn't like Lupin because he doesn't trust him. Because he answered Harry's question right after the chapter, or right before this chapter, at the end of chapter 18.
But still, Harry has his reservations about the whole situation going on.
So he's already conflicted between Lupin and Sirius, because Sirius Black is this guy that he has been thinking that he's coming to murder him, and he doesn't trust him at all. And then there's Lupin, who's trying to explain why Sirius is good. So he's really conflicted about someone he doesn't trust and someone he does. And then here comes Snape, a guy that he detests. So, I mean, I don't think that makes him feel any better. I think it makes him even more confused.
Look, there are so many reasons that these chapters are my favorite chapters of any Harry Potter book, and that this is my favorite Harry Potter book. And I think one of the other reasons is this Snape moment. He's come in under the invisibility cloak that was James's invisibility cloak. This chapter is really Snape's chance at being a marauder. He always wanted to fit in, or was always jealous or envious of James's talent. Crouching under his invisibility cloak, saving the day, is all reminiscent of everything Snape's ever wanted for himself. The difference is that, Snape lets his personal feelings get, the better of him. So, I know we'll be getting in shortly, the choices that he makes do not appeal to Harry, and the choices that he makes actually work to set everybody against him. And I don't think it's because he's Snape. I just think it's because he's going about it all wrong,
You'd have to think that he's heard the entire story at this point, and he knows the truth, and he's just not willing to accept what he's just heard.
You're right.
There's no reason for him not to believe it.
Right.
As Hermione tries to get him to do, a little bit later on, why can't we test these guys' theories out? And if it turns out not to be true,
he quickly becomes a villain
so
again.
be it.
Well,
yep.
At any rate, Harry has a quick change of heart, though, when Snape says he's taking Lupin and Sirius to the Dementors. Harry realizes Lupin has had a million chances to kill him, but he hasn't. So Snape insists to move out of the way, but the trio, and basically all at the same time, sends spells at Snape. He goes flying backward, and he's knocked out, which was kind of insane to see a teacher be hit by a student. I mean, that's unheard of.
3.
And they believe this is all because of Snape's childhood grudge. This reason that Snape is so angry and so wants to see Lupin and Sirius in Azkaban is because of, the pranks that they played on Snape when they were all students at Hogwarts. Is it really, though? Do you guys believe this is truly Snape's childhood grudge he's still holding? He just can't let go?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can't let go. I mean, what gives him the right to say, why don't we, I'm going to take you straight to the Dementors. I'm not even going to take you up to the castle.
No trial.
He's not the police.
No nothing.
He's not anybody of authority other than a professor.
No.
But at this time, he does think that Lupin has been helping Sirius in the castle.
He doesn't care.
I don't think so.
Again, he's heard the story. He knows that.
Yeah, exactly. He's heard the whole story. He's been listening the whole time. He knows the truth.
And Snape,
but he's letting his like you said, the childhood issues blind his.
It's a lifelong issue. It grew out of his childhood. He was like it in his adolescence, and it's a lifelong grudge.
Yeah, I mean, he even mentions about revenge. So that's what he's doing right now. He's just trying to get revenge from what the Marauders did to him.
And I think nothing but that could have made the whole trio stand up in unison and start sending spells at Snape, because he wasn't helping the situation. he really wasn't, and they wanted answers, and he was just going to take them all to get their souls sucked out before they can explain anything.
Right, and calling Hermione a stupid girl probably didn't help the situation.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, that and the fact that he's supposedly Lord Voldemort's most trusted, Death Eater, he would probably know that Sirius wasn't the one who betrayed the Potters.
That's very true.
So then Sirius begins to explain everything. This is where a ton of information starts to come out. He learned of Pettigrew's life as Scabbers after seeing the rat in the Daily Prophet without a toe. He's been working with Crookshanks to bring Scabbers to him. Sirius we're talking about. Scabbers hadn't been looking healthy ever since when Ron returned from Egypt, when Sirius escaped from Azkaban. And lastly, Sirius explains to Harry that the Secret Keeper power was transferred to Pettigrew at the last minute, meaning that while it was Sirius's fault, it wasn't really his fault. It was actually Pettigrew who betrayed his parents. So that was the big twist. And so with all this information now out on the table, Sirius and Lupin decide to attempt to transform Scabbers, and of course it works, and Pettigrew appears. And Pettigrew, then in an act of being desperate, tries to convince Lupin that Sirius is actually the crazy one, but it's no use. And Hermione decides to speak up and asks why Pettigrew never decided to do anything to Harry the whole time he's been sleeping in the same dormitory. And Pettigrew is like, yeah, of course, I've been innocent. I mean, I stare at him sleeping every night. But Sirius is too smart for this. He responds that Pettigrew would never do anything unless he could see what was in it for himself. Hermione then asks how Sirius had possibly escaped from Azkaban, and it's a pretty simple way, it seems. He explains that the Dementors can't see, so he was able to transform into a dog and sneak through the bars since he was so thin. That was essentially, I mean, the story was a little more drawn out. But he did this when they were delivering food, and he then swam out into the ocean and came to Hogwarts, living in the forest the entire time.
The other thing is that because they suck out happy memories, the memory of Sirius of being innocent wasn't a happy memory, so it stayed with him. So he still knew who he was and that he didn't do what he did. Yeah. So when he saw when he read the newspaper and saw Pettigrew in Egypt, he knew that it gave him the flair, the spark to get out and do something about his innocence.
I like how Hermione referred to him as Mr. Black.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes, Mr. Black or Sirius?
Like he's a professor or something.
Exactly. Well, he's growing in everyone's eyes. He's not just Sirius Black, escaped crazy madman, convicted felon.
Yeah, I guess so. This is sort of Joe's way of telling us that Hermione's starting to have respect for him. So then Pettigrew continues going around attempting to be saved by everyone in the room. He sort of sucks up to everyone individually, and nobody has it, so Sirius and Lupin prepare to kill him. But at this moment, Harry steps in front of Pettigrew to stop Lupin and Sirius from killing him. Harry says he's only doing this because he thinks his father wouldn't want Sirius and Lupin to become killers by way of killing Pettigrew. To this, Sirius says, quote, "You're the only person who has the right to decide, Harry." And I've always had a problem with this. Does he? Should it be Harry who's making this decision? Sirius and Lupin clearly have good reasons for wanting to kill Pettigrew. So, Micah, do you agree with this? I mean, what's going on here? Why didn't Lupin and Sirius just kill him anyway? Who cares what Harry has to say?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like saying that Snape has the right to take Lupin and Sirius to the Dementors. It's kind of that same argument. He doesn't. And I don't think it's Harry's choice either. I mean, obviously it has huge implications later on in the series that he did that. But I just don't think it's right. I think that they should have just taken him in. Why even kill him? I mean, if you kill him, the story dies with him. That's the worst part of it. You take him, knock him out, bring him up to the castle, and force the truth out of him.
Reading about all of the stuff that Sirius goes through in books 4 and 5, he's in hiding and he's secluded and, he's lonely. All of that is because the public or anyone in power has not seen Peter Pettigrew alive. And that's devastating because, if they had just seen him alive, seen him in human form once again, they would know that the whole thing was fake. And as it happens, Dumbledore does believe Harry and Lupin and all of that. So, Sirius is able to help out the Order, but I mean, that's what's just so heart-wrenching in reading these chapters again, is that all anybody had to do was see Pettigrew. And so, yes, killing him would be the wrong answer at this point. And I think it's interesting that Harry, this wasn't really that intense a scene where it's like, I mean, they're going to kill him, and Harry's like, no, my dad wouldn't really want that. And he's like, well, if you're sure. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure, let's take him to the castle. That created a life debt. And it's interesting because that's kind of vague for a life debt, to particularly owe somebody. That's a magical contract that's being formed right when Harry suggested, hey, my parents wouldn't really want this.
But it would have been such a miscalculation on their part, though, to kill him, because then they're just letting their raw emotion take over, because, who's to say that they wouldn't have just said, oh, well, he broke out of Azkaban to kill Pettigrew, because that's what he initially intended to do and never succeeded.
Right.
And so now here he is dead. Who's to say that they wouldn't, hold Lupin as his accomplice, because they're not going to believe the word of 3,
underage
school
wizards.
children.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still disagree. I would have had him killed. So the chapter ends with everyone leaving the Shrieking Shack and taking Snape and Pettigrew back up to the castle to get them, tended to. Snape is hanging in midair because of the strings that Lupin put around him, and it kind of reminded me of what Voldemort does in Deathly Hallows with that woman who's spinning in midair.
Burbage.
Yeah. Yes, Charity Burbage. So I thought that was kind of like, not foreshadow, just a nice little connection, I thought.
Especially since she asks him for help in that chapter too.
And to wrap up the chapter, Micah has a point about this.
Oh, when they're leaving the shack, because we all know what happens afterwards, but I mean, wouldn't it have been smart for Lupin to send a Patronus to Dumbledore?
Yeah.
I mean, one would think that they could make it all the way up to the castle without something happening.
Yeah.
But
There's a small chance.
Yeah, knowing the sort of coincidence factor that plays into all these books. But, I just thought that would have been a perfect opportunity for him to go to somebody that he obviously puts a lot of trust in and would be able to help them out in this particular situation.
That's actually a really great point. He should have, at this point, recruited Dumbledore. And I mean, the only thing I can think of is that, they used to use their Patronuses to communicate with each other back in the old days, the first Voldemort War. It's been 13 years, so I guess that kind of either fell out of practice or isn't on the top of their minds. From what I understand, it's a very interesting way to use your Patronus to send messages. So I think it would have been important to alert Dumbledore, and they should have done that. It's a great point. But it probably wasn't on the...
Well, I mean, when's the first time we see that? Is it Goblet of Fire?
I thought it was...
When Barty Crouch Sr. is found?
Oh, I wonder.
I think it is.
It might be.
I think so,
But
yeah.
When he wants Hagrid, I think.
But also, I mean, the Marauders always used to do stuff on their own, too. And maybe that's why they didn't get call for Dumbledore's help.
Well, at this point,
at the time,
Pettigrew is standing there in human form with all of the trio being able to back up both Sirius and Lupin. I think at this point, before they leave the shack, it is an okay moment to call Dumbledore. And I think recruiting Dumbledore would have prevented a lot, everything.
Well, related to that question now, we have some feedback sent in via Twitter. Before recording every episode, we send a tweet out through our MuggleCast Twitter, which is twitter.com/MuggleCast, to ask people to contribute their questions about these chapters. 7Leah7 asks, why wouldn't they stun Pettigrew rather than tie him up and risk him transforming? I think, personally, just in this moment, nobody was really thinking straight. It was sort of like a whirlwind, everything that just went on. So I think I'm not surprised that these kind of mistakes happened. Stunning Pettigrew certainly would have help prevent situations that were later to follow.
They had a lot of things to accomplish too, and one little trip to the Shrieking Shack. Going in, Harry thinks Sirius Black is a murderer. He regrets that he's his godfather, his crazy things. And by the time he comes out, both Lupin and Sirius are cleared of charges. Peter Pettigrew isn't dead for the past 13 years. He's alive and well, living his runs. So much has happened. It's like they're not counting on the moon. And that sucks. Hardcore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a question about that, though, too, because doesn't he say that you're supposed to take the Wolfsbane potion a week before the full moon? And when Snape comes in, he says you left your potion on the desk. So it really shouldn't be a full moon. Because Snape brews it for him a week beforehand so that he has enough time to take it. So I don't know if that's like a screw up in the timeline of things, but it shouldn't be a full moon that night.
Right. And I always thought that with werewolves, I mean, this is probably not right or anything, but I mean, on the night of a full moon, couldn't he feel like there's a new moon or there's a full moon coming?
Yeah, not even if he's in front of it, like. Yeah,
because I mean, even if the moon isn't shining on him at that moment, I mean, doesn't a werewolf sort of have that connection to the full moon when it's out? I don't know.
Next question comes from Luisa Luca. How come there's no cure for lycanthropy? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Lycanthropy. Nobody ever asked Lockhart about the werewolf he claimed he cured.
Ooh.
After he was exposed as a fraud, shouldn't they have found and treated his victims and studied their discoveries?
That's interesting. That's actually really interesting. Because if anybody cured a werewolf, you'd think you'd want to know about that, because there isn't a cure.
Right.
That's a good point.
Right, you would know. Well, of course, but Lockhart wasn't being serious, so.
Yeah. But if it's in a book that he cured a werewolf, I mean, I'd think that would...
So somebody else
must have cured, or something. So yeah, that's a good question. That may be my favorite tweet ever.
Favorite tweet ever. BeanGirl1389 says, Snape has no luck when he's near the Shrieking Shack. That's absolutely true.
Like I said, he started out okay. He's got the invisibility cloak and ready to set about some revels, but yeah, he doesn't.
It's kind of ironic. He died in the place he always wanted to go to.
Yay!
Poor guy.
It all comes full circle.
Like the moon.
It all comes full oval.
Well, we only have one more chapter by chapter segment left for this book, because on episode 198 we will cover the final 3 chapters. So from those 3 we will now do quote quiz. Well done, I think. Yes, I think you've gone too. Get inside. I'll lock you in.
Dumbledore.
That's absolutely correct, Micah. You are a quote quiz master.
Oh, Micah, I got one for you. Okay, quote. Well, we shall see, Snape, we shall see. The boy has undoubtedly been foolish.
Fudge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we have 2 Muggle Mail emails this week. A bit of a shorter Muggle Mail this week because of our interview with Warwick Davis. Eric, could you read the first one?
Yeah, first one's from Lauren from Doncaster, UK. She says, I want to say that the background with Hermione living near Harry, she's referring to an alternate timeline that JKR considered. You mentioned it was when the Potters lived at Godric's Hollow and Mr. Granger saw Hagrid as he took Harry from Godric's Hollow just after Voldemort killed Lily and James. Well, you wanted to talk about how Hermione and Harry would have known each other before, and their relationship would be impacted and may have changed in the series. However, my point is this would not be the case, as both characters would have been around the age of 1 when Harry was taken to Privet Drive, therefore away from the Grangers, meaning that they would not actually be growing up together and would have no recollection of each other whatsoever, and I doubt that Mr. Granger would tell Hermione that he saw a huge man take the child away from the house down the road. That would probably instill nightmares in her young mind. So when they went to Hogwarts, neither would still be aware of the other. Love the show and just wanted to point this out. Okay. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking they were referring to Privet Drive. But as Lauren puts at the very end of her email, it couldn't mean leaving from Privet Drive later in Harry's life, as Hagrid picks Harry up from that secret gateway when Dudley gets turned into a pig. So, Bummer.
So wait, what was the point then of Rowling considering Hermione growing up with Harry?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I guess as a writer, you have different thoughts about how each character should start out, and it just popped into her head, maybe?
Yeah, but they I mean, when Rowling was talking about it, she was talking about Harry and Hermione knowing each other before Harry goes off to Hogwarts, wasn't he? Or was she just talking about them living in Godric's Hollow, same time as the Potters?
Well, maybe there would have been some backstory concerning the Potters and Granger parents, perhaps?
Maybe
not so much Harry and Hermione.
Maybe he was just going to stab him with his wand.
What?
But they still would have had some certain bonds, even though they would have been too young to know each other in that short period of time. Maybe they still would have had some extra special connection, knowing that they each used to live next to each other and their parents were friends, possibly.
Interesting.
Next email is from Nicole, 25, of Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Cucamonga.
Thank you. Eric's just all full of pronunciations today. Hi, MuggleCast. I was just writing in a question I thought of while listening to your episode 196 discussion of cat, rat, and dog for Prisoner of Azkaban. What spell do you think Harry would have used to kill Sirius? Since they don't learn about unforgivable curses till the following year, and I don't think they know too many spells that would do fatal damage at that point. Although Harry might disagree, I doubt even the most powerful Expelliarmus would do him in. Just wanted to see what you guys thought. Thanks, I love the show, and I've been a listener for many years. Keep up the good work.
Oh, crap. That's what I was referring to as this email. Sorry, my scroll keeps going down like half a page.
Referring to when?
When
I was talking about the wand.
Oh. That's odd.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you said he'd stab him with his wand, right?
Yeah.
Like right in the eye. Or up the nose.
Yeah, pretty much.
That might work.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
Hermione
Serious
would have
bogeys.
known. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, just because they don't learn about them doesn't mean they don't know about them. You know, there's plenty of stuff. You know, think about it when you're in school. Like the teacher may teach you something, but you already know about it, right? I mean, there are things.
Sure.
Well, you learn about in school that you already know about from your own personal life.
Yeah.
I think Harry would probably know the spell that killed his parents.
Well, Hermione knows about the unforgivable curses because she answers them in the next book.
Yeah, Hermione knows about. I really don't think Harry knows about them until they're introduced in class.
Right.
Harry specifically. I think Ron knows about them, having heard, from being a wizarding family, all that. So.
But Eric, do you think that Harry, knowing the Avada Kedavra curse, could kill Sirius?
Well, no, I don't
moment?
think he'd try, and I don't think he was asked to. I think Remus and Sirius said it was Harry's choice whether or not Pettigrew gets killed. But I don't think that they mean that Harry should do it. I think that, they're going to do it. They're willing to do it. And so, it wouldn't be an issue because Lupin and Sirius would kill Pettigrew for Harry. He wouldn't need to know the spell.
Right, but Nicole's asking how
about
he would
Sirius?
kill Sirius. Yeah, because at that moment he's filled with rage.
Yeah, with Sirius, I don't think that Harry knew the unforgivable curses, and I really think the best that Harry could do is probably a bat bogey hex. So Sirius is on the ground.
Well, think about Molly though.
Yeah.
Molly doesn't use a killing curse. She just does something that ends up killing Bellatrix. I mean, I'm sure if there's enough pent-up rage inside of you, maybe he could just choke the guy to death. I mean, who knows? Who says he's got to use magic? Or like Matt said, stab him with a wand. I don't know. Like
sparks always
or kick him somewhere.
fly out of Harry's
exactly.
when he uses it. So
Right. To wrap up the show today, it's time for Chicken Soup for the MuggleCast soul. Everyone cozy up and listen in. This one's from Evelyn Lewis, 17 of Maryland. Hey guys, love the show. I've been listening to your show for a year now, and I just want to thank you for such a fun podcast. I never used to have a good relationship with my mom. I got along with my dad more, but she heard me listening to you guys and started listening with me. Your show gave us something to bond over, and now we are very close, and I am proud to say I actually enjoyed prom dress shopping with her. Again, amazingly fantastic show, and thank you so much. P.S. My mom says hi to Micah.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is my favorite chicken soup ever.
Signed, Lynn.
my mom.
Hello to Evelyn's mom.
Well,
exchange numbers later, Micah.
Oh, this is awesome though. It's a girl who says, she wasn't that close with their mom, but they both listen to MuggleCast and they bond over This is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Glad to hear. Thank you very much. And
prom dress shopping is such an important part of a young girl's life, so I'm glad that she could spend that with her mom.
And with us.
And with us. Yeah, we were probably there, like, in the dressing room. They were talking about, like, what Micah said.
Eric.
What?
Of course it goes to the dressing room with you. How about just in the shopping area? Why the dressing room?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. Now I'm thoroughly
Okay,
embarrassed.
well, before we let everyone go today, we want to remind you about a couple of things. First of all, Infinitus 2010 is coming up this July. It's July 15th to the 18th in Orlando, Florida. We're going to be there, and we can't wait to see you. We're going to be doing a live MuggleCast, and there's some exciting news to announce about that. Very exciting stuff. We can't yet.
Like what?
I can't reveal at this time. I'm sorry, Micah, but
it's exciting.
We are doing a podcast, and and if you want to do something fun Potter related this summer, go to the Harry Potter theme park and be there while we're there during Infinitus 2010, which is a big Harry Potter conference that we're all looking forward to.
It's the Harry Potter conference.
Infinitus2010.org is the site to get all the information about it. You can learn what's going to be going on there. You can register, and we hope to see you there. When you do register, be sure to put MuggleCast in your referral box. Also, don't forget we're putting together the MuggleCast remix. Visit MuggleCast.com for full details, including a link to the first MuggleCast remix, so you can enjoy that. But to put it nice and short, just find your favorite moment from episodes 26 to 100.
Moments.
And moments, right? You can send in multiple moments. And email them to eric@staff.mugglenet.com. He needs the episode number and the time that the moments begin. It could be multiple episodes. You know what we're saying. MuggleCast.com is the website where you can get all the information you need pertaining to this wonderful program that we do each and every other week. You can follow us on Twitter, fan us on Facebook. Don't forget to vote for us once a month at Podcast Alley. Get all the information about us. You can see our pretty pictures. You can read questions about the show, questions and answers. You can download any episode of MuggleCast you could ever want. Now
You can read transcripts.
You can read transcripts. You can
read about the transcribers.
Right. You can visit our Wall of Fame with lots of information. The Wall of Fame, it's on the right side of MuggleCast.com, underneath all the community links. It's some of our favorite episodes of MuggleCast, and we explained why each one was so good. So that's a lot of fun to read through as well. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Episode 198 will be released around May 12th.
Andrew, what's going to come sooner,
Yes.
episode 200 or MuggleNet 2.0?
MuggleNet 2.0.
Awesome.
We'll talk about that next episode, and I actually can show you guys how it's looking now. It's actually in a semi-working order.
Cool.
At this point. So we'll do that after we finish recording the show here. I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Eric Skull.
Micah Tannenbaum.
And I'm Matt Britton.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you May 12th for episode 198. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome, everyone, back to the show. It's a special episode today. Hold on, I wasn't feeling that intro. Welcome back, everyone, to the show. It's a special Okay, well, that wraps up chapter by chapter this week. We're already ahead of that. Now, it's too early. That's my problem today.